This is Brendan from Common Motor Collective. That's common-motor.com on the internets. Today we're going to be working on one of our project CB360s, and we're going to do a fork rebuild. This is a question a lot of people ask us about: how do I rebuild my forks, what parts do I need, etc. So we're going to get in there and show you how to do it. In fact, we're going to show you two different techniques to take the forks apart, because I know that a lot of you guys out there don't have a full workshop or a vise and a workbench. So we're going to show you an on-the-bike technique and an off-the-bike technique for taking the forks apart and then rebuilding them and putting it back together. So right now we have a front wheel off our bike. We have the front of it up on a jack stand and on the center stand, so it's nice and stable. It's not going to go anywhere. And we're going to show you, let's just get into it. Alright, so here's an assortment of different pieces or parts you might need when you're doing the fork rebuild. And I know there's a lot written here right now, and I'm going to go through it. And the reason there's a lot is because whether it's a 350, a 360, or a 450, the rebuild's really similar on the forks. However, they changed a lot over the years, and so certain parts are specific to certain year groups. So let's look over here, starting with our fork seals. This is a standard style fork seal. You'll see a lot of these out on the market everywhere. It means that the inner is rubber and the outer of it has kind of a hard metal casing, and this one happens to be also covered in rubber. But that's your standard style fork seal. They work great. They're a little bit more difficult to take out and install than some of the easy install seals I'll talk about in a minute. But for our part number 8000, there's the CNC part number, and this is going to fit all the 360 variants, CB360, the late CB350G model with a disc brake, and also some of the later 350s, the K4 and up. Basically, if the forks on your bike look like the ones we're about to work on, as we get into it, these seals will work. Also, if you're working on a 450 or later style, K3 through K7, and also a CB500T, part number 8010 is our part number. Now I'm going to talk about the easy install seals. These are fantastic. Once I discovered these, I really never went back to the standard seals. They're a little bit different, and see how they flex and they move? It works a little bit on a hydraulic principle, where hydraulic pressure actually comes into these little veins here. You can see these like ribs in the bottom. And as the fork wheel comes up into the veins, it causes the seal to expand and grab. These seals are great. They're made in the US. They come with a lifetime warranty on them. And of course, they're easy to install without any special tools. We have them in a variety of sizes that fit a couple different fork variants on the bike. 8002 is, again, our CB360 parts, all of them, 350G, and of course the later style 350s, K4s and up. 8014 is for our early style 350s. They have a little bit different diameter seal, and so it's a special fit, so the KOs and the K3s. And then 8009 for, again, our late 450s, K3s through K7s, and of course the 500T. So that's your fork seals, got it covered. If you don't see your application on there, contact us and we'll let you know what we got. So that's what keeps the oil. The forks, over here we have dust boots or fork boots. And we have two styles. This is what I call kind of I call it like a mushroom cap, because it kind of has this mushroom shape to it. And this is what showed up on the, again, the 360s and the 350G, all the late style stuff. We also have the same style seal, this mushroom fork, for the 500T. So that's 8008 for the 500Ts. And you can convert a 450 to use these as well. So if you want this style seal and you have a 450, you can run it if you need to. And of course, for the 350s and 360s, part number 8001. We also have what we think here, people call them the bellows style or the accordion style dust boot. Some people call them fork gaiters. Anyway, same thing. These are going to fit your K2 through K7 450s that have the mounting on the headlight trim ring and on the lower part of the fork to hold these in place. CNC part number 8018. And very lastly, at the very bottom down here, is a special fork bolt. This is an Allen head bolt that has a very unique kind of short head on it, so that it's a little bit thinner here and it's wider here. It's not your typical Allen bolt you'd pick up at the hardware store. It's a specialty Allen bolt for fork bolts. This particular part number 8013 is going to be for the 360 and the 350G, what we're working on today. Other ones are available if you need them for the application. Again, and this is a fork bolt and this kind of copper crush washer. Sometimes these strip out and you have to change them. And you'll see here in a minute as we take the forks apart why this is a very important bolt. All right, let's take a look at the tools we're going to use to take this whole thing apart. All right, so here's some of the tools we're going to use on the fork rebuild, starting over on the left-hand side here. Of course, we have our metric sockets, 10 millimeter through 17 millimeter. And if you watch my videos before, you know I always talk about 6-point sockets and how much I like them over 12-point sockets. One of my favorite tools, again, my 3/8 inch breaker bar. Again, it makes breaking stubborn bolts loose really easy. 3/8 extension, 3/8 ratchet, and then here is a 6 millimeter Allen head driver. You can buy these as a whole set, or you can buy them individually. You will need this tool to take this apart. If you're going to try to use regular Allen wrenches, your bent L shape, you're not going to be able to make it happen. So spend a few bucks and buy this tool because you will need it. Some screwdrivers, flathead Phillips, torque wrench. Our forks want to be mounted back in the bike under a specific torque value, so you're going to need a torque wrench for that. Pry bar, graduated cylinder for putting in the right amount of fork oil in the forks. If you don't have a graduated cylinder, you can use like a kitchen measuring cup, one that obviously you're not going to use in the kitchen again, but something to measure out liquid volume as precisely as you can. And of course some fork oil. In this case, we're going to be putting a 15 weight fork oil on the bike. The Honda manual specifies ATF or automatic transmission fluid. We find that ATF runs about 5 weight to 7 weight depending on the brand, and it's just a little bit too spongy. So I always recommend between a 10 to 20 weight fork oil, 15 weight being in the middle. Doesn't matter what brand you buy as long as you get it for motorcycles, so you can hit up your local motorcycle shop for that. All right, let's start taking the forks off. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of you guys, I realize, don't have a workbench or a vise, and so we're going to do an on-the-bike technique fork disassembly for this one fork tube, and then we'll actually show you an on-the-bench technique as well. And the reason we're doing an on-the-bike technique is because, well, what else holds the fork really well other than the bike itself? So our lower triple tree here really grabs the fork well. So we're going to take advantage of kind of the geometry of the bike to hold the pieces in place while we break certain bolts loose. So I've taken the front wheel off, but I've kept the front fender on. And the reason I've kept the front fender on is because this fork brace here keeps the fork tube from rotating left to right. If this was removed, this fork leg would rotate. It would make this assembly really tough. Additionally, I have the bike headset turned all the way to the left. And of course I'm hitting the stop here on the frame. Again, that's going to help keep things stable as I break a couple bolts loose. And so the first bolt we're going to break loose up here is this top cap. You can see this big guy right here. This is actually a cap. We're not going to remove it. All we're going to do is get it loose. So in order to do that, I'm going to use my breaker bar with my 17 millimeter 6-point. I'm going to go in here and hopefully break it loose. And I'm going to stand up. That way I have the handlebars to kind of pry against and hold, so I have some resistance. Let's see if we can get it. Something like that. You guys see the camera? Alright. Come on. That's it. Just broke it loose. That's all I want. So it's loose. I'm going to go right back till I feel it snug up and stop. Right there. Because now we'll be able to pop it loose much easier. Alright, now we're going to work down to the bottom fork and show you the real trick to taking these things apart. Okay, so we've rotated the forks now all the way to the right hand side, hitting the lock. And the reason we went from the left to right is because we're going to be removing a bolt that's up under here. I know you can't see it with the camera right now, but that bolt is actually this bolt here, that 8013 that I showed you earlier. And our goal right now is to basically crack this bolt loose. It's super tight in here. Once we get it to pop loose, the fork comes apart like butter. But if this bolt doesn't crack loose, or it strips, or it causes the guts to turn on the inside, it makes things a lot more complicated. So this is a really crucial stage to get it right. This is where we're going to use our breaker bar, our extension, and of course our tip to get up right in here. So I can feel it. Good and snug. And we're going to need that leverage of the bar to actually break the bolt loose. Also, in order to make this even easier, I'm going to fire up my old trusty heat gun and heat this up even more. Again, heat always helps break fasteners loose. So I'm going to heat it for a few minutes and then we'll actually go to crack it loose. Okay, we've been heating it up for a few minutes here. We're going to go ahead and kill the heat gun. We've got our wrench ready to go, and we're going to see if we can pop it loose. Here we go. There, nice and straight. 1, 2, 3. Did you hear the crack? How it just popped? Now it's loose. That's it. Stop there. So now we can start taking apart the rest of the fork and getting it apart. So, but yeah, that's the crucial one right there. So this fork's going to come right apart. I'm just going to go ahead and start taking the fender off again. And again, I just taken off before. One there. Anyway, get the fender off, and then we're actually going to drain the oil out of the fork. So bottom bolt's broken loose. We're going to go ahead and remove the top cap. Remember, we broke it loose earlier. I'm going to use my breaker bar so I can sneak in here and get to it. Now this cap here is spring loaded, so it's going to want to pop loose once this cap lets go. So, in fact, I think I'm going to change that to like an open-end wrench to finish this off. So, keeping pressure on it with my thumb because I don't want to pop. There we go. See how it popped up like that? All right, here's our cap. I'm going to go ahead and take that and put it aside. Now comes the messy part. We're going to take our spring out. The spring is going to be covered with oil, so have a rag handy. You kind of pull it out of here. Yeah, this is a little bit easier if you have the handlebars taken off. Oh, there it goes right there. A little oil on it. You can look at the spring here so we can get at the shot. See that this end here is a little bit smaller, tapers down, versus this end is a little bit bigger on the diameter. So make sure you keep the orientation correct. Okay, we're going to go back down to the bottom of the fork and finish the disassembly. Okay, so this bolt here is our drain plug on the fork, and it's a little 10mm. Shouldn't be too tight. Also, when you go to put this back on, you shouldn't over tighten it because it's a very small bolt. Okay, got an oil pan underneath me, and here it comes. Smells wonderful. If only we could catch that on the camera. Who knows how long this fork rail's been in here. Okay, let's get this bolt out of here. I'm putting some downward pressure on the fork. There it goes. Let go. Okay, that is our bolt, and our copper washer is on there. Sometimes the copper washer is stuck on the inside there. So just put him in the tray there, and now our whole fork leg is just going to slide off. There it is. Okay. Cool. Take off the boot. Here's our fork seal, and we'll take that apart in a minute. And we'll finish taking the fork itself off the bike. So go ahead and now we can actually drop the fork out of the triple tree here. So I'm going to loosen the upper triple tree. Let's go ahead and take off the lower triple tree. The lower is what does all the work. The whole leg, you just kind of want to slide down. Sometimes you're stuck. Right out. Alright, here's our fork leg. Right there. So let's go ahead and disassemble the rest of it and show you all the guts here. Okay, so get some of the parts out of here. Here's our fork leg. There's one more part on the inside here. Kind of shook it, and there you go. It's like this kind of T-shaped piece. It goes right here. And of course here's our leg itself. So here's the external pieces, the fork tube, or fork leg, and the fork tube. In the end of the fork leg here we have the seal and snap ring. We're going to pry that out here in a little bit. And the internal, here's kind of the order of the guts. So here's our screw in the bottom. It's this little T-shaped guy. This is next to the dampening rod, and it has the small spring on it. And here's our main spring, and then we have our top cap down there, and of course that's our oil drain plug. And that's all the parts in the fork, other than our boot and the seal right there. Not a whole lot to it. So that's technique one. Second technique we'll do on this other fork and show you how we take it apart on the bench. A little bit easier there. Oh, isn't that called the money shot? Oh, money shot. all over the camera. I'll put the rag here.